A poor little girl hands a drawing to the millionaire CEO. It's identical to one made by his missing daughter. "I made it for you," she says, not knowing he was actually her father. "Hey everyone! Today I'm sharing an incredible story that will touch your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat. It's about love, loss, and the mysterious ways life brings people together. If this story moves you, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think will happen next. Your engagement means the world to me." The autumn rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Harrison Industries' 42nd floor as CEO James Harrison stood motionless, staring at the city below. At 52, his once dark hair now carried silver streaks that seemed to multiply with each passing month. 8 years, 8 long years since his world had crumbled. "Mr. Harrison?" His assistant Sarah's voice broke through his reverie. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. James straightened his tie, the same navy blue with small anchors that Emma had given him for Father's Day when she was 7. "I'll be right there." But as he moved toward the door, something caught his eye. A small girl, maybe 9 years old, stood in the reception area clutching a piece of paper. Her clothes were worn but clean, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked lost, out of place among the marble and mahogany. "Excuse me." The girl's voice was barely audible as she approached the reception desk. "I made this for the man who helps sick children." James stopped dead in his tracks. The receptionist, Helen, looked confused. "Sweetie, I'm not sure what you mean." "My teacher said a man in this building gives money to help sick kids get better. I wanted to thank him." The girl held up her drawing. James's breath caught. Even from across the room, he could see it clearly. A stick-figure family under a rainbow, with a small dog beside them. The same composition, the same careful crayon strokes, the same way Emma used to draw the sun with a smiling face. "I'll take care of this," James said, his voice hoarse. He walked over, kneeling down to the girl's eye level. "What's your name?" "Lily." She looked up at him with eyes that seemed familiar, though he couldn't place why. "Are you the man who helps kids?" James nodded slowly. Yes. What's this drawing about?" "It's my family. Well, the family I wish I had." Lily's voice grew quiet. "My mom works really hard, but she's sick now. I heard about you at school, and I wanted to give you this because you help people like us." James took the drawing with trembling hands. It was identical, absolutely identical, to dozens Emma had made. The same rainbow placement, the same stick figure proportions, even the same little dog in the corner. "Where did you learn to draw like this?" He asked. "I don't know. I see it in my head and draw it." Lily shrugged. "My mum says I've been drawing the same picture since I was really little." The board meeting was forgotten. James studied the girl's face, searching for something he couldn't name. "Lily, what's your last name?" "Patterson, Lily Patterson." She tilted her head. "Are you okay, mister? You look sad." James's heart hammered. Patterson, the name hit him like a physical blow. "Your mother, what's her name?" "Rebecca. Rebecca Patterson." Lily's eyes brightened. "Do you know her?" The conference room fell silent as James burst through the doors 20 minutes late, his face pale and his hands shaking. The 12 board members looked up expectantly, but James could barely focus on their faces. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began, his voice unsteady, "I need to postpone this meeting." "James, we've been planning this quarterly review for weeks," said Margaret Chen, the board's longest-serving member. The shareholders can wait." James's tone was sharper than intended. "Something urgent has come up." As the room emptied with confused murmurs, James remained seated, staring at the child's drawing spread before him on the mahogany table. Every line, every color choice, every detail was achingly familiar. His phone buzzed. A text from his private investigator. David Walsh. No new leads on Emma's case. Sorry, James. Still searching. James had spent over $2 million on investigators, psychics, and search teams. Emma had vanished from Central Park on a sunny Saturday afternoon in May 2016. One moment she was feeding ducks by the pond with her nanny, Mrs. Chen, and the next she was gone. Mrs. Chen had suffered a heart attack during the chaos and died 2 days later, taking any potential answers with her. The police investigation had been thorough but fruitless. No ransom demands, no witnesses, no trace. Emma Harrison, age 7, had simply vanished. Now, clutching this drawing, James felt something he hadn't experienced in years, hope mixed with paralyzing fear. He called David Walsh immediately. I need you to investigate someone, Rebecca Patterson. She has a daughter named Lily, about 9 years old. James, we've been through this before. Every lead... This is different, James's voice cracked. The girl. She draws exactly like Emma. Identical drawings, David. Identical. There was a long pause. I'll start immediately. Where did you meet her? She came to my office, said her mother is sick, that she'd heard about my charitable work. James stood up, pacing. David, what if? What if Emma didn't die? Emma didn't. What if someone took her and she's been living under a different name? James, I need you to stay calm. We'll investigate this thoroughly, but we can't jump to conclusions. After hanging up, James walked to his office window again. The rain had stopped, and somewhere in the city below, a little girl named Lily was probably going home to her sick mother, a mother named Rebecca Patterson. Emma would be 15 now, but what if she wasn't? What if she was 9-year-old Lily, living a completely different life, not knowing who she really was? James picked up the drawing again. In the bottom corner, in careful crayon letters, Lily had written, "For the kind man who helps families stay together." The irony was crushing. For 8 years, James had donated millions to missing children's organizations, hoping to help other families avoid his pain. Now, a child might be thanking him for the very thing he'd failed to do, keep his own family together. Rebecca Patterson sat in the hospital waiting room, her thin frame hunched over a stack of medical bills. At 34, she looked older, worn down by years of struggle and worry. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows under her eyes as she calculated and recalculated numbers that never seemed to add up. "Mom." Lily appeared beside her, still clutching her backpack. "How did your appointment go?" Rebecca forced a smile. "Fine, sweetheart. Just some routine tests." She couldn't tell her daughter that the tumor was growing, that the treatments were no longer working, that they had maybe 6 months left together. "I did something today," Lily said, sitting beside her mother. "I went to that big building downtown and gave my drawing to the man who helps sick kids." Rebecca's blood ran cold. "What building? What man?" "Harrison Industries. The teacher said Mr. Harrison gives money to help families like ours." Lily's eyes shone with innocent pride. "He was really nice, Mom. He seemed sad, though." "I think he needed my drawing." Harrison. The name sent a chill down Rebecca's spine. She'd spent 9 years running from that name, creating a new identity, a new life. But now... "Lily, listen to me very carefully," Rebecca said, gripping her daughter's hands. "You can't go back there. You can't talk to that man again. But, Mom, he was kind. And he looked at my drawing like it meant something special to him." Rebecca's mind raced. James Harrison, the man who'd hired her as a nanny 9 years ago, the man whose wife had died in a car accident, leaving him alone with 7-year-old Emma, the man who'd trusted her with his most precious possession, the man whose daughter she'd been forced to take. "Promise me, Lily. Promise you won't go back there." "I promise, but why? Did I do something wrong?" Rebecca pulled her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults have complicated problems that children shouldn't worry about. But as she held Lily, Rebecca's mind traveled back to that terrible day in May 2016. She'd been Emma's nanny for 2 years, and the little girl had become like her own daughter. When Rebecca discovered she was pregnant, a result of an assault she'd never reported, she'd been terrified. A young, unwed mother wouldn't be suitable to care for a wealthy man's child. She'd planned to give her notice, to disappear quietly. But then came the phone call that changed everything. "Rebecca, this is Marcus Webb. I believe you know my employer, Vincent Castellano." She'd known the name. Everyone in certain circles knew Vincent Castellano, a man who collected debts with interest and didn't accept no for an answer. "Your boyfriend, Tommy, owes Mr. Castellano a considerable sum, $100,000 to be exact." Rebecca had felt the world tilt. She'd dated Tommy briefly, but he'd never mentioned any gambling debts, any dangerous connections. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Tommy's disappeared, Rebecca, but Mr. Castellano knows about your situation. Working for James Harrison, access to his home, his child. He has a proposition." The proposition had been simple and horrible. Take Emma Harrison and disappear, or watch Tommy die and face the consequences herself. "We'll give you new identities, new lives. The girl will be safe, well cared for. Mr. Harrison will never find you." Rebecca had refused, of course, but then they'd shown her photos of Tommy, beaten and bloodied. And they'd made it clear that she was pregnant with their protection or without it. Take the girl or lose everything. Your choice. She'd taken Emma from the park that day, her heart breaking with every step. Mrs. Chen had tried to stop her, and in the struggle the older woman had collapsed. Rebecca had tried to help, but the men were waiting, rushing her and Emma into a van. For 3 weeks, they'd hidden in a safe house while Rebecca received new documents. Rebecca Patterson, single mother, and Emma became Lily Patterson, age 2, on her forged birth certificate. The memory inducer treatments had been the worst part, experimental drugs that clouded a child's memory, making them forget their past while implanting new memories. Emma had fought them at first, crying for her daddy, but eventually the treatments took hold. Emma Harrison died that day. Lily Patterson was born. Now, 9 years later, Rebecca was dying, and the daughter she'd stolen was about to discover the truth about her past. James Harrison couldn't concentrate on anything. 2 days had passed since Lily's visit, and David Walsh's preliminary report lay open on his desk. The information was sparse, but troubling. Rebecca Patterson, age 34, moved to the city 9 years ago with her daughter Lily, then age 2. No prior address on record, no family connections, no employment history before 2016. She's worked various jobs, waitressing, cleaning, childcare, always paid in cash, currently employed at Mercy General Hospital in food services. The timeline was perfect, too perfect. James's hand shook as he continued reading. Medical records show ongoing treatment for pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Prognosis is poor. The daughter, Lily, has no school records prior to age 3, no birth certificate from any local hospital, no pediatric records before 2016. The phone rang. David Walsh's voice was grim. "James, I've been digging deeper. Rebecca Patterson didn't exist before 2016. No credit history, no social security records, no tax returns. It's like she materialized out of thin air." And the girl? Same story. "But James, I found something else. Rebecca Patterson has been paying cash for everything, but she's been sending money orders to a P.O. box in Nevada, $500 a month, regular as clockwork." James felt his pulse quicken. Blackmail payments. "It's possible. I'm trying to trace the P.O. box, but it's going to take time." After hanging up, James stared at Emma's photograph on his desk. 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding a drawing of their family. The same drawing style, the same careful attention to detail that he'd seen in Lily's artwork. He'd been torturing himself with questions. Could Rebecca Patterson have taken Emma? But how? Why? And if Lily was really Emma, why hadn't she recognized him? His research into memory suppression had led him down a dark rabbit hole. Experimental treatments, underground medical procedures, ways to erase a child's memory and implant new ones. The technology existed, though it was illegal and dangerous. But what if someone had been desperate enough to use it? James picked up his phone and dialed Mercy General Hospital. "I'd like to speak with Rebecca Patterson, please. Food services." "I'm sorry, sir, but Rebecca is on medical leave. She's been undergoing treatment." "Treatment? Is she very sick?" "I'm not supposed to discuss employee information, but yes, sir, she's quite ill." James's mind raced. If Rebecca was dying, what would happen to Lily? Would she end up in foster care? Would he lose his daughter again, just as he'd found her? He made a decision that would change everything. He would approach Rebecca Patterson directly. If she was really Emma's kidnapper, he needed to know the truth. If she was just a coincidence, he needed to understand why her daughter looked so much like Emma, why she drew the same pictures, why she seemed so familiar. But first, he needed to prepare for the possibility that his worst fears were true, that the woman who'd raised his daughter was dying, and that Emma might not remember him at all. James opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small jewelry box. Inside was Emma's favorite necklace, a simple gold heart with a tiny diamond, a gift for her 7th birthday. She'd been wearing it the day she disappeared. If Lily was really Emma, she would remember this necklace. She would remember the story behind it, the way she'd hugged him when he gave it to her, the way she'd promised to wear it every day. James clasped the necklace in his palm. Tomorrow he would find Rebecca Patterson and demand the truth. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, he would finally know what happened to his daughter. The small apartment on 3rd Street was nothing like the mansion Emma had grown up in. Rebecca Patterson opened the door with trembling hands, her face gaunt from recent chemotherapy. Behind her, Lily sat at a small table working on her homework. "Mr. Harrison," Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper, I wasn't expecting you." James studied her face, searching for recognition, for guilt, for anything that might reveal the truth. "We need to talk, Rebecca, about your daughter." "Lily, go to your room for a few minutes, sweetheart." "But, Mom, I want to finish my—" "Now, Lily." As the girl reluctantly left the room, James stepped inside. The apartment was spotless despite being cramped, filled with Lily's artwork and school projects. He noticed something immediately. Dozens of drawings, all variations of the same theme. Families under rainbows, stick figures holding hands, always with a small dog. "She's been drawing those since she was tiny," Rebecca said, following his gaze. "I used to think it was just her imagination, but—" "But what?" Rebecca sat heavily on the worn couch. "Mr. Harrison, I know why you're here. I've been expecting this day for 9 years. James felt his heart stop. "You know who I am. I know exactly who you are. And I know who Lily really is." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I've been dying for months, Mr. Harrison, literally dying, and I've been trying to figure out how to tell you the truth before it's too late. You took her." James's voice was raw with emotion. "You took my daughter from me. I didn't have a choice." Rebecca's words came out in a rush. "They said they'd kill me, kill Tommy, kill anyone who got in their way. I was supposed to take her and disappear forever, but I couldn't let them hurt her." "Who? Who made you do this?" "Vincent Castellano. He's a loan shark, among other things. My boyfriend Tommy had gambling debts. And when he couldn't pay—" Rebecca wiped her eyes. "They knew I worked for you. They knew I had access to Emma. They said if I didn't take her, they'd kill us both and take her anyway." James sank into a chair, his legs suddenly unable to support him. "Emma, does she remember? They gave her drugs, memory suppressants. She was so young. And the treatments were, They were horrible to watch. She cried for you at first, calling for her daddy, but after a few weeks, Rebecca's voice broke. She started calling me Mama. She forgot her old life completely. But the drawings, she still draws the same pictures. Some things are deeper than memory, I think. Some things are just a part of who we are. Rebecca stood up slowly. Mr. Harrison, I know you must hate me. I know you probably want to call the police, press charges. But I need you to know that I've loved her like my own daughter. I've protected her, cared for her, done everything I could to give her a good life. Where is Vincent Castellano now? Dead. He was killed in a gang war 3 years ago. The man who's been collecting the payments, Marcus Webb, he disappeared after that. I think we're finally safe. James looked toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. She doesn't know. Nothing. She thinks I'm her biological mother. She thinks her father died before she was born. Rebecca's voice was barely audible. I was going to tell her the truth before I died. I was going to explain everything and help her find you. How long do you have? Weeks, maybe a month. Rebecca met his eyes. I know this is asking too much, but I need to know that she'll be okay, that she'll be loved and cared for, that she'll understand why I did what I did. James stood up, walking to the window. Outside, children played in the street, their laughter carrying on the evening air. His daughter was in the next room, alive and safe, but she didn't know him. She didn't remember their life together, their bedtime stories, their Saturday morning pancakes. I want to see her, he said finally. I want to spend time with her before you tell her the truth. She likes you already. She's been talking about the nice man who accepted her drawing. Rebecca managed a weak smile. She has your eyes, you know. I always worried someone would notice. What do I call her? How do I be her father when she doesn't know I'm her father? You start by being her friend. You earn her trust. And when the time comes, you help her understand that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. James nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of 9 lost years and the uncertainty of whatever came next. His daughter was alive, but she belonged to someone else now. Someone who was dying, someone who'd sacrificed everything to protect her. The next few weeks passed in a blur of careful visits and guarded conversations. James found excuses to stop by the apartment, bringing groceries, offering to help with medical bills. Slowly becoming part of their daily routine, Lily warmed to him quickly, showing him her schoolwork, teaching him card games, sharing stories about her friends. She was bright, funny, and kind, everything Emma had been, but with 9 years of different experiences shaping her personality. Mr. Harrison, she said one afternoon while they worked on a puzzle together, why don't you have a family? Don't you get lonely? James felt his throat tighten. I had a family once, a little girl about your age, but she's not with me anymore. Did she die? I don't know, she disappeared. Lily studied his face with the intensity only children possessed. That's really sad. I bet she misses you too. What makes you think that? Because you're nice, and you're sad in the same way my mom gets sad sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. Rebecca was declining rapidly. The treatments had stopped working, and she spent most of her time in bed, too weak to maintain her usual routines. But she watched James with Lily, and slowly, something like peace began to settle over her features. She trusts you, Rebecca told him one evening after Lily had gone to bed. I think it's time. Time for what? To tell her the truth. About me? About you? About everything. Rebecca's voice was weak but determined. I can't wait any longer. I need to know she understands before. Are you sure? Once we tell her, everything changes. Everything's already changing. I'm dying, Mr. Harrison. She's going to lose the only mother she's ever known. The least I can do is give her back her real father. They planned it carefully. Rebecca would tell Lily the truth about her illness first, then explain about the past, about James, about why she'd made the choices she had. James would be there to answer questions, to provide comfort, to begin the long process of rebuilding their relationship. But 3 days before they planned to have the conversation, Rebecca collapsed. James got the call at 2 a.m. "Mr. Harrison, this is Lily, my mom. She won't wake up. The ambulance is here, but she won't wake up." James raced to the hospital, his heart pounding. In the emergency room, he found Lily sitting alone in a plastic chair. Her feet barely touching the floor, she looked small and lost, clutching a stuffed rabbit he'd never seen before. "Lily, sweetheart, I'm here." She looked up at him with eyes full of tears. "They said she might not wake up. They said her body is too tired to fight anymore." James knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands in his. "Whatever happens, I'm going to take care of you, I promise. But you're not my family. You're just Mom's friend." James felt his heart break. Rebecca was unconscious, possibly dying, and she'd never had the chance to tell Lily the truth. His daughter still didn't know who he was, still didn't understand that she wasn't about to become an orphan. "Lily, there's something I need to tell you. Something about your mom, and about me, and about you." "What do you mean?" James reached into his pocket and pulled out the small jewelry box he'd been carrying for weeks. Inside was Emma's necklace. The gold heart with the tiny diamond. "Do you remember this?" Lily stared at the necklace, her brow furrowing. No. Should I?" "Look at it carefully. Think about when you were very little, before you lived with your mom." Lily took the necklace, turning it over in her small hands. For a moment, James thought he saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but then she shook her head. "I don't remember anything from before. Mom said I was too little." James made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Lily, I need to tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I need you to trust me, okay?" As he began to speak, telling her about Emma, about the kidnapping, about the years of searching, Lily's expression changed from confusion to disbelief, to something that might have been hope. The little girl who'd handed him a drawing 2 weeks ago was about to discover that the sad man who'd accepted it was actually her father, and that her entire life had been built on a lie told in love. The hospital room was bathed in the soft glow of morning light filtering through Venetian blinds. Rebecca Patterson lay unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady, surrounded by the quiet hum of medical equipment. James sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside her bed, watching his daughter, his Emma, his Lily, gently stroke Rebecca's pale hand. "She's going to be okay, isn't she, Daddy?" The word felt foreign on Lily's tongue, yet somehow perfectly natural. "She has to be okay." James reached over and smoothed his daughter's blonde hair, marveling at how quickly the memories had flooded back once the psychological barriers had crumbled. The necklace had been the key, unlocking 9 years of suppressed recollections like a dam bursting open. "The doctors are doing everything they can, sweetheart." Dr. Martinez entered the room, his expression grave as he reviewed Rebecca's charts. "Mr. Harrison, I need to be completely honest with you both. Mrs. Patterson's condition has deteriorated significantly. The cancer has metastasized to her liver and lungs. We've managed to stabilize her for now, but realistically, we're looking at days, possibly a week at most." Lily's grip on Rebecca's hand tightened, her knuckles white with the effort. "But she's strong. She's been fighting this for so long, she can't give up now." "She's been fighting for you," James said softly, his own voice thick with emotion. "Everything she's done for the past 9 years has been for you." As if responding to their voices, Rebecca's eyelids fluttered open. Her gaze was unfocused at first, then slowly sharpened as she took in her surroundings. "Lily, baby, are you all right?" What happened? I'm here, Mom. And Daddy's here too. Lily leaned closer to the bed, her voice trembling with a mixture of joy and sorrow. I remember him now. I remember everything. Rebecca's eyes widened, then found James's face across the bed. Fear, relief, and resignation warred in her expression. You told her the truth. She remembered on her own, James explained, his voice gentle but firm. The necklace triggered something deep in her memory. All those years of suppressed recollections just came flooding back like a tidal wave. I remember you taking me from the park, Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I remember being scared and confused, but I also remember how you held me and promised everything would be okay. I remember you crying when they gave me those awful medicines. Rebecca's tears began flowing freely down her cheeks. I was so terrified, Lily. They said they would hurt you if I didn't cooperate. I couldn't let anything happen to you. I couldn't bear the thought of you being hurt because of me. You saved her life, James interjected, leaning forward in his chair. Rebecca, I need you to understand something. I don't blame you for what happened. I understand why you made the choice you did. You protected my daughter when I couldn't. But I stole 9 years from you, Rebecca whispered, her guilt evident in every word. 9 years of your life with your daughter. And you gave her 9 years of love, safety, and care, James countered firmly. You read her bedtime stories, helped her with homework, held her when she had nightmares. You were her mother in every way that mattered. Lily carefully climbed onto the narrow hospital bed, nestling against Rebecca's side just as she had countless times over the years. Mom, I need you to know that even though I remember my daddy now, you'll always be my mom too. You're the one who taught me to ride a bike, who made me chicken soup when I was sick, who stayed up all night when I had fever. Rebecca's arms tightened around the girl she'd raised as her own. I wanted to tell you the truth so many times over the years. I wanted you to know your real father, but I was terrified of losing you. Selfish as it sounds, I couldn't bear the thought of you hating me. I could never hate you, Lily said fiercely, her voice muffled against Rebecca's shoulder. You're my mum, and Daddy's my father, and somehow we're all family now. Love doesn't have to be simple or easy to understand. James felt something profound shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced in nearly a decade. She's absolutely right, Rebecca. You're part of our family now. You always will be, for as long as we live. But I'm dying, James, Rebecca said, her voice barely audible. What happens to Lily when I'm gone? Will she remember me? Will she understand why I did what I did? She'll come home with me, where she belongs, James said without hesitation. But that doesn't mean we forget you or pretend these 9 years didn't happen. It means we honor what you sacrificed for her. It means we make sure she knows that she was loved by 2 mothers, and that both of them would do anything to protect her. Rebecca closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, a peaceful expression settled over her gaunt features. I used to have dreams about this moment, about you finding her, about her being safe and loved with her real father. I just never imagined I'd be here to witness it myself. You fought for her every single day for 9 years, James said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. You gave her the love and stability she needed to grow into this incredible young woman. Now it's my turn to take care of her. But I'll never forget what you did. Lily looked up at both of them, her eyes bright with tears, but also with hope. Can we all stay together tonight, as a family? I don't want to leave Mum alone. James immediately called for a cot to be brought into the room. They settled in for what would be Rebecca's final night with the daughter she'd loved as her own. Outside the hospital window, the city lights twinkled like earthbound stars, and for the first time in 9 years, James Harrison felt truly, completely whole. Rebecca Patterson passed away peacefully 3 days later, in the early hours of a crisp October morning. with James and Lily holding her hands as the sun painted the hospital room in shades of gold and amber. Her last words had been, "Take care of our girl," whispered so softly that James had to lean close to hear them. The funeral service was held at St. Mary's Catholic Church, a small but beautiful sanctuary where Rebecca had occasionally attended Mass over the years. The attendance was modest but meaningful. A handful of co-workers from Mercy General Hospital, Mrs. Rodriguez, the elderly neighbor who had always looked out for Lily, and several families from the children's cancer ward where Rebecca had volunteered during her own treatment. "She was one of the good ones," said Dr. Patricia Williams, Rebecca's oncologist, as she approached James and Lily after the service. "In 20 years of treating cancer patients, I've never seen someone fight as hard as she did. Not for herself, for her daughter. Every day she was determined to live just one more day to take care of Lily." Mrs. Rodriguez, wiping tears from her weathered cheeks, took Lily's hands in her own. "Mija, your mama was so proud of you. She would come home from those parent-teacher conferences just glowing, talking about how smart you were, how kind you were. She said you were her miracle." "She was mine too," Lily replied, her voice steady despite her grief. "She taught me that love isn't always simple, but it's always worth fighting for." The transition to James's penthouse was managed with careful attention to Lily's emotional needs. Dr. Sarah Chen, the child psychologist they'd been working with, recommended a gradual approach. Weekend visits that extended into longer stays, allowing Lily to adjust at her own pace. "It's beautiful," Lily said the first time she spent a full week in the penthouse. Standing in the floor-to-ceiling windows of the living room that was larger than her entire apartment with Rebecca had been. "But it's so quiet. I'm used to hearing Mrs. Rodriguez's television through the walls and the kids playing in the street." "We can make it less quiet," James promised, sitting beside her on the leather sofa. "We can fill it with music and laughter and all the sounds of a real family. We just need time to learn how to be a family again." The most emotionally charged moment came when James showed Lily to Emma's old room, which he had left untouched for 9 years, unable to bring himself to change anything. The pink bedspread, the collection of stuffed animals lined up precisely on the shelf, the bookcase filled with picture books and early readers. It was like stepping into a time capsule. "This was my room," Lily said softly, her voice filled with wonder as she touched familiar objects that triggered cascades of recovered memories. "I remember this place. I remember the Princess Castle nightlight and the way you used to read to me every night before bed." "Good night, Moon," James said, his throat tight with emotion. "You insisted on that book every single night for 6 months straight." "And The Very Hungry Caterpillar," Lily added, picking up the well-worn book from the shelf. "You did different voices for all the food the caterpillar ate. You made me laugh so hard I could barely fall asleep." She moved to the bed and picked up a familiar teddy bear, its brown fur worn soft from years of cuddling. "Mr. Buttons, oh my God. I remember Mr. Buttons. I used to tell him all my secrets." Watching his daughter rediscover pieces of her childhood was both heartbreaking and healing for James. "We can redecorate if you want," he offered gently. "Make it more appropriate for a 10-year-old instead of a 7-year-old. "Can we keep some things?" Lily asked, hugging Mr. Buttons close to her chest. "I want to remember being little Emma. But I also want it to feel like home for who I am now, Lily, who lived with Mom Rebecca for 9 years. Over the following weeks, they worked together to transform the room into something that honored both Emma's past and Lily's present. They kept the books and Mr. Buttons, but added a desk for homework, posters of her current favorite singers, and a special shelf for photographs from her life with Rebecca. Pictures of birthday parties, school plays, quiet moments of a mother and daughter who had loved each other deeply. The psychological adjustment proved more challenging than the physical changes. Some nights Lily would wake up disoriented, caught between dreams of her life with Rebecca and the flood of recovered memories from her early years with James. He would sit with her during these difficult moments, helping her process the complex emotions of grief, joy, confusion, and hope that warred within her young heart. "I miss her so much, it feels like I can't breathe sometimes." Lily sobbed one particularly difficult night, curled up in James's arms as rain pattered against the windows. "But I also missed you all those years when I couldn't remember who you were. How can I miss two different lives at the same time?" "Because both lives were real," James said gently, stroking her hair. "Both lives were filled with people who loved you completely. Rebecca gave you 9 years of devotion and care, and I loved you for 7 years before that. You don't have to choose between loving us both." "Will the sadness ever stop hurting so much?" "The sadness will change, sweetheart," James promised. "It will become a different kind of love. The kind that lives in your heart even when someone isn't physically with you anymore. Rebecca will always be part of who you are." Slowly, carefully, they began building new routines that incorporated the best of both their past and their present. Saturday morning pancakes, just like they used to make when she was little Emma. Bedtime stories. Though now Lily was capable of reading many of them herself. Art projects that celebrated both her rediscovered relationship with James and her treasured memories of Rebecca. "Look, Daddy," she said one evening, showing him a drawing she'd been working on for hours. "It's our family, you and me and Mr. Buttons. But also Mom Rebecca watching over us from heaven. She's still part of our family, even though she's not here anymore." James studied the careful artwork, noting the way Lily had drawn Rebecca as a graceful angel figure above them, her arms outstretched in protection and love. "It's absolutely perfect," he said, and meant every word. 6 months after Rebecca's death, James and Lily had settled into a rhythm that felt increasingly natural, though tinged with the bittersweet awareness of all the time they'd lost. Lily was thriving in her new private school, Westfield Academy, where her intelligence and resilience had quickly earned her both academic success and genuine friendships. But it was David Walsh's urgent phone call on a Tuesday morning that shattered their newfound peace and brought the dangerous past crashing back into their carefully reconstructed present. "James, I need you to sit down." David's voice was tense with concern. "I've been tracking down the remaining members of Vincent Castellano's organization, following up on loose ends from the investigation. Most of his associates scattered like roaches after he was killed 3 years ago. But I've discovered something that's going to change everything." "What is it, David?" James felt his blood pressure rising, instinctively sensing that their ordeal was far from over. "Marcus Webb, the enforcer who was collecting those monthly payments from Rebecca? He's not dead like we assumed. He's been in federal prison for the last 3 years on unrelated racketeering charges, but he's scheduled for release next month. James, if he gets out and starts looking into his old business." The implication hit James like a physical blow to the chest. "He'll come looking for Lily." "There's more," David continued grimly. "I've been digging deeper into Castellano's operation, and Emma wasn't an isolated case. I found evidence of at least 4 other children who were taken from wealthy families over a span of 6 years. All of them were given new identities. All of them disappeared without a trace." James gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles went white. "You're telling me there are other families out there still searching for their children?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And if Webb gets out and tries to reconnect with any surviving members of the organization, or if he decides Lily represents unfinished business that could incriminate him." David let the sentence hang in the air, its implications crystal clear. That evening, James faced the difficult task of explaining the situation to Lily. At 10 years old, she had already endured more trauma and upheaval than most adults, but she had also demonstrated a remarkable maturity and strength that continued to amaze him. "Lily, sweetheart, I need to tell you something important about the people who were responsible for taking you away from me 9 years ago. The bad men who forced Rebecca to take me." Lily looked up from her homework, her expression immediately serious and attentive. "Yes, one of them. The man who was in charge of collecting money from Rebecca to keep you both safe is getting out of prison soon. I don't necessarily think he'll come looking for us, but I want you to be prepared and aware, just in case something happens." Lily set down her pencil and considered this information with the gravity of someone far older than her years. "Are you scared, Daddy?" "A little bit, yes," James admitted honestly. "But mostly I'm determined. I lost you once through circumstances beyond my control, and I'm never going to let anyone take you away from me again. Not ever." "What do we do?" "We're going to work with the police and the FBI to make sure this man can't hurt our family or any other families. And we're going to do everything in our power to help find those other missing children and bring them home to their parents." The next few weeks were tense and filled with security precautions. James hired additional bodyguards, changed their daily routines, installed sophisticated alarm systems, and worked closely with federal agents who were building a comprehensive case against the remnants of Castellano's criminal organization. But it was Lily herself who provided the breakthrough that law enforcement desperately needed. "Daddy, I've been having dreams again," she announced one morning over breakfast, her voice thoughtful and slightly troubled. "Not nightmares exactly, but memories. I think I'm remembering things about the place where they kept me before Rebecca and I got our new identities and moved to the city." "What kind of things are you remembering, sweetheart?" There was a big warehouse somewhere outside the city, and there were other children there, not just me. I remember a little boy with dark hair who cried all the time and wouldn't eat anything they gave him. And there was a girl, maybe 8 years old, with beautiful red hair who spoke with an accent. She was really scared and kept asking for her mama. James immediately contacted both David Walsh and the federal agents working the case. Lily's recovered memories, combined with their ongoing investigation, led them to a defunct shipping facility in an industrial area 40 minutes outside the city. The building had been abandoned for years. But when agents searched it thoroughly, they found evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Hidden in a concealed basement area, investigators discovered forged documents, medical equipment that had been used for the experimental memory suppression treatments, computer files containing detailed records of kidnapped children, and most importantly, current information about other victims who were still living under false identities. The massive coordinated raid that followed resulted in the arrest of 12 individuals connected to Castellano's organization, including Marcus Webb, who was apprehended 2 days before his scheduled prison release. More importantly, the investigation led to the recovery of 3 other children who had been living under assumed names for years, unaware of their true identities. "You did this," Agent Patricia Vasquez told Lily after the arrests were completed and the other families had been reunited. "Your courage in remembering those painful details, your willingness to share those memories with us, that's what broke this case wide open. You helped bring other families back together." Lily looked up at James with a mixture of pride and profound understanding in her young eyes. "Just like you never stopped looking for me, even when everyone said there was no hope." "Exactly like that," James confirmed, pulling her close. "You've learned that love never gives up, and that sometimes our worst experiences can be transformed into ways to help other people." That night, as they watched news coverage of the emotional family reunions taking place across the country, Lily made a decision that would ultimately define the entire direction of her life. "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to help find missing children. I want to work with the FBI or the police to help families like ours, families like the ones we helped save." James smiled, seeing in his daughter not just the sweet little Emma he had lost, but also the strong, compassionate young woman that Rebecca had nurtured and shaped. "I think that's exactly what you're meant to do with your life, sweetheart." 2 years after the arrests that dismantled the remainder of Castellano's organization, 12-year-old Lily Harrison stood before a packed congressional hearing room in Washington, D.C. She wore a navy blue dress that James had helped her choose, and around her neck was the gold heart necklace that had triggered the return of her memories, now a symbol of hope and resilience that she carried with her everywhere. The hearing was focused on proposed legislation that would dramatically increase penalties for child trafficking and establish new protocols for investigating missing children cases. Lily had been invited to testify as both a survivor and an advocate, representing not just her own experience, but the dozens of families who had been helped by the investigation her memories had made possible. "My name is Lily Harrison," she began, her clear young voice carrying easily through the microphone to every corner of the chamber. "But for 9 years, I was known as Lily Patterson. I was kidnapped when I was 7 years old and given experimental drugs that erased my memories of my real family." The committee room fell completely silent, except for the soft clicking of cameras and the quiet scratching of reporters frantically taking notes. Several of the senators leaned forward, clearly moved by the composed dignity of this remarkable child. "I'm here today to tell you about 3 different kinds of love," Lily continued, her confidence growing with each word. "The first kind belonged to my birth mother, who died when I was very young, but who gave me the foundation of knowing I was wanted and cherished. The second kind belonged to my father, who searched for me every single day for 9 years and never stopped believing he would find me." James watched from the gallery, his heart swelling with pride and amazement at the poised, articulate young woman his daughter had become. "But I also want to tell you about a third kind of love. The love of a woman named Rebecca Patterson, who was forced to take me away from my father, but who spent every day of those 9 years protecting me, caring for me, and loving me as if I were her own biological child." Lily paused, taking a sip of water before continuing with even greater intensity. "Rebecca Patterson was not a villain in this story. She was a hero who made an impossible choice to save my life. When dangerous men threatened to hurt both of us, she chose to become my protector rather than abandon me to an uncertain fate. She worked multiple jobs to support us. She held me when I had nightmares. She taught me to be kind and strong and resilient." The committee chairman, Senator Michael Bradley, leaned forward with obvious emotion. "Miss Harrison, what would you want the American people to understand about families who have experienced what yours has experienced?" Lily thought carefully before responding, choosing her words with the precision of someone far older than 12. "I would want them to understand that love isn't always simple or easy to recognize. Sometimes the people who save us don't look like the heroes in movies or storybooks. Sometimes families are created by circumstances instead of biology, and I would want them to know that even when terrible things happen, even when people are separated for years, love has the power to heal and rebuild and create something beautiful." "What specific changes would you like to see in how our law enforcement agencies handle cases like yours?" "I want them to understand that missing children grow up, but they don't stop being someone's child. I want investigators to never give up. Even when cases seem hopeless, I want them to know that memories can be recovered, that families can be reunited even after many years, and that every single missing child represents a family whose world has been destroyed." After the hearing, James and Lily walked hand in hand through the marble corridors of the Capitol building, both of them aware of how far they had traveled from that rainy afternoon when a confused little girl had handed a drawing to a heartbroken father. "I'm so proud of you," James said as they stood on the steps of the Capitol, looking out over the city where laws were made and lives were changed. "Your mother, both of your mothers, would be incredibly proud of the young woman you're becoming." "I know they would be," Lily replied with quiet confidence. "I carry both of them with me everywhere I go. Rebecca's strength and your determination, they're both part of who I am now." That evening, they attended a private dinner hosted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where they met with other families whose lives had been touched by kidnapping, trafficking, and recovery. Around the long table sat parents and children who understood the complex emotions of loss, hope, reunion, and healing. "To second chances," James proposed, raising his glass of sparkling cider in a toast. "To the people who love us enough to fight for us," added Maria Santos, whose 8-year-old son had been missing for 4 years before being found through the investigation Lily's memories had sparked. "To never giving up hope, no matter how impossible things seem," said Lily. And everyone around the table echoed her words with heartfelt conviction. Later that night, as James tucked Lily into bed in their hotel room, a ritual they had maintained even as she grew older and more independent, she asked him a question that had been weighing on her mind throughout the day. "Daddy, do you think Rebecca somehow knew that taking me would eventually lead to helping all those other families find each other?" James considered the question seriously, understanding that his answer would shape how Lily viewed not just Rebecca's sacrifice, but the meaning and purpose of her own experiences. "I think Rebecca understood that love has a way of creating more love, even when we can't see how it's going to happen. She loved you so completely that she was willing to sacrifice her own safety and happiness for yours, and that kind of pure love has a ripple effect that touches more lives than we can imagine. Like throwing a stone into a calm pond," Lily mused, snuggling deeper into her pillows. "The circles just keep getting bigger and bigger until they reach places you never expected." "That's exactly right," James agreed, kissing her forehead gently. "And your love, your courage, your willingness to share your story, that's going to create ripples too, bigger than you can even imagine right now." As he turned off the lights and settled into the chair beside her bed, James reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 9 years of desperate searching, months of careful adjustment, years of healing and growth. And now this, a future filled with purpose, hope, and the promise of helping other families find their way back to each other. Rebecca Patterson had saved far more than just one frightened little girl. She had preserved a father's love, maintained a family's connection across impossible circumstances, and set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately help dozens of other families experience the miracle of reunion. 5 years later, 17-year-old Lily Harrison stood at the podium in the packed auditorium of Westfield Academy, delivering her valedictorian speech to a crowd of proud families, distinguished faculty, and fellow graduates who had watched her transform from a traumatized 10-year-old into a confident young woman with an unshakable sense of purpose. "When I was 7 years old, I was taken from my father and forced to live under a false identity," she began, her voice strong and clear as it carried to every corner of the room. "For 9 years, I lived with a woman who loved me like her own daughter, even though protecting me put her in constant danger. When I was finally reunited with my father at age 10, I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Families aren't defined by blood or genetics alone. They're created by the people who choose to love us, protect us, and help us become who we're meant to be." In the front row, James dabbed at his eyes with a handkerchief, overcome with emotion as he watched his daughter, brilliant, compassionate and wise beyond her years, prepare to embark on the next chapter of her extraordinary life. The experiences that could have destroyed me instead taught me about resilience, about the power of love to overcome trauma, and about the importance of never giving up on the people we care about, Lily continued. This fall, I'll be attending Harvard University, where I plan to study criminal justice and psychology with a focus on missing children cases. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause, but Lily raised her hand gently to continue. My goal isn't just to become an FBI agent or a victim's advocate, though those are certainly possibilities I'm exploring. My goal is to ensure that every missing child in America has someone fighting for them with the same determination my father showed when he searched for me, and with the same protective love that Rebecca Patterson demonstrated when she chose to save my life rather than save herself. After the ceremony, their home was filled with friends, family, and colleagues who had become part of their extended community over the years. Agent Patricia Vasquez, now retired but still a close mentor to Lily, raised her glass in a toast. 7 years ago, I met a 10-year-old girl whose courage and recovered memories helped us solve one of the most complex child trafficking cases in recent history. Today, I'm watching that same girl prepare to change the world. Lily, you're going to make an incredible law enforcement officer, but more importantly, you're going to make a difference in ways you can't even imagine yet. I've had exceptional teachers and role models, Lily replied, glancing meaningfully at James and then at the framed photograph of Rebecca that held a place of honor on the mantelpiece. Dr. Sarah Chen, the psychologist who had helped them navigate the early days of Lily's transition, pulled James aside during the celebration. I've been working with traumatized children for 25 years, she said quietly, and I've never seen a recovery as complete or as purposeful as Lily's. The way you and Rebecca loved her, the way you helped her process and integrate her experiences instead of just trying to forget them, it's created something remarkable. Rebecca deserves most of the credit, James replied. She kept Lily's heart intact during those crucial years. All I did was help her remember who she was. You did much more than that. You showed her that love endures, even across time and trauma. That's not a small gift. That evening, as the last guest departed and they cleaned up the remnants of the celebration, father and daughter found themselves alone on the terrace of their penthouse, looking out over the city lights that had witnessed so much of their journey together. Are you nervous about Harvard? James asked, settling into the comfortable chair that had become his favorite spot for their evening conversations. A little nervous, but mostly excited, Lily admitted, curling up in the chair beside him. I feel like everything I've experienced, the kidnapping, living with Rebecca, being reunited with you, helping with the investigation. It's all been preparing me for whatever comes next. You know, when you were little Emma, you used to say you wanted to be a princess when you grew up. Lily laughed, the sound carrying easily across the evening air. I think helping missing children find their families is better than being a princess. It's real magic, not fairy tale magic. Rebecca would be so proud of the woman you've become, James said softly. She always said you were destined for something special, something that would help other people. I miss her every single day, but I'm grateful for her every single day too. Lily's voice grew thoughtful. You know what I think healing really looks like? It's not forgetting the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It's taking that pain and transforming it into something that can help other people. It's making meaning out of suffering. That's very wise for someone who's not even 18 yet. I've had good teachers, she replied with a smile. Both of my parents taught me that love is stronger than fear, and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is refuse to let bad experiences make us bitter or small. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city below them settle into the rhythm of evening. In a few months, Lily would leave for college, and James would begin adjusting to life without the constant joy and purpose that her presence had brought to his days. But their bond, forged in loss and strengthened by love, would endure any distance. "Dad," Lily said, as they prepared to go inside, "I want you to know that finding you again, remembering who you were and who we were together, it didn't just give me back my father, it gave me back my faith in happy endings." "And you," James replied, pulling her into a hug that encompassed all the years they'd lost and all the years they still had ahead of them. "You gave me back my faith in miracles." As they walked inside, James caught sight of the framed drawing hanging in the hallway, the one Lily had given him that first day in his office building 7 years ago. Below it hung a photo of Rebecca holding infant Lily, and next to that, a picture of all three of them together in the hospital during Rebecca's final days. It was their family portrait, complicated, unconventional, marked by loss and trauma, but also by love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds that connect people across time and circumstance. It was absolutely perfectly beautiful. 25 years had passed since that grey autumn afternoon when 9-year-old Lily Patterson had walked into Harrison Industries and handed James a drawing that would change the trajectory of both their lives forever. Now, 34-year-old FBI Special Agent Lily Harrison stood in the same gleaming office building, but this time she wore a badge and carried the authority of someone who had dedicated her entire adult life to bringing missing children home to their families. "Dad, are you ready for this?" she asked, adjusting the jacket of her navy blue suit as they rode the elevator to the 42nd floor where it had all begun. James, now 77 and officially retired from Harrison Industries, smiled at his daughter with the same pride and love he'd felt every day since their reunion. "I've been ready for this moment for 25 years, sweetheart." They were there for the official dedication of the Rebecca Patterson Center for Missing Children, a state-of-the-art facility that would serve as national headquarters for a revolutionary new task force specializing in cases involving trafficked and missing children. The center represented the culmination of Lily's career and the fulfillment of a promise she had made to herself as a traumatized 10-year-old, that no family would endure what hers had endured if she had the power to prevent it. In her 15 years with the FBI, Lily had personally been involved in the recovery of over 300 missing children. Her unique perspective as both a survivor and an investigator had revolutionized the way law enforcement approached these cases, leading to new protocols, innovative investigative techniques, and most importantly, dramatic increases in successful recoveries. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Mayor Catherine Williams to the assembled crowd of law enforcement officials, politicians, journalists, and families, "it is my profound honor to introduce a woman whose life's work has brought countless families back together and whose personal story embodies the very best of human resilience, FBI Special Agent Lily Harrison." Lily approached the podium with the confidence of someone who had spent years speaking truth to power, looking out at an audience that included not only dignitaries and officials, but dozens of families whose children had been found through her work, living testaments to the impact of her dedication. 25 years ago, I stood in this very building as a confused and frightened little girl who didn't know who she really was, Lily began, her voice carrying the weight of experience and the authority of someone who had transformed personal trauma into public service. "I handed a simple drawing to a man I didn't recognize, not knowing he was my father, not understanding that this single act of reaching out would set us both on a journey that led to this extraordinary moment." She paused, finding James in the crowd and drawing strength from his encouraging smile. The same gentle expression he'd given her before every school play, every important test, every significant moment of her life. Today, we're dedicating this center to Rebecca Patterson, a woman who was forced to make an impossible choice between saving her own life and saving mine. She chose love over fear, protection over self-preservation, and sacrifice over safety. She taught me that heroism doesn't always look like what we expect, and that sometimes the people who save us do so at tremendous personal cost. Lily's voice grew stronger and more passionate as she concluded her speech. The Rebecca Patterson Center will operate on one fundamental principle, that every missing child matters. Every family deserves hope, and love will always find a way home. As the crowd erupted in applause, James felt Rebecca's presence with them, her sacrifice finally receiving the honor it deserved. Lily had transformed their tragedy into triumph, their pain into purpose.